There's no time.
The time is
13
o'clock. All right, we are back once again doing another true crime show on episode 136.
It is a true crime episode.
It is.
With a bad cord. With a bad Yeti cord.
We said this on the last movie review, but if the audio is not as good as usual, it's because we're having issues with either the microphone or the cord. We haven't really figured it out yet.
I'm going to buy a new cord first, and if that doesn't solve it, then we got to buy a new Yeti. Yeah. I got that used. They're $100, so...
Yeah, so eventually we'll get around. I mean, I'm sure it's passable because I can usually, equalize it and fart around with it in Audacity.
It's not recognizing it.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll figure it out. But hopefully it's not too bad. I think when we did the movie review, I think it came out all right.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, before I do any more audiobooks, I'm going to have to either figure out what's wrong with it or get a new one.
They're not that much. We'll just buy another one.
Yeah, which, kind of sucks, but what are you going to do? All right, so this show I wanted to do, and these were both specific requests, and they were actually both cases that I wanted to talk about anyway, so I was glad somebody requested them. And I said I'm kind of going to put them both together because, just because I'm trying to double up on some of our topics, just because we have so many, and I want to be able to, get to some of them. So I'm trying to, put together topics that are, a similar theme or, even if it's not even that similar, but it's just one thing that connects them that I can kind of put together. So this one I kind of wanted to do a sort of murder on the road type of thing. So we're going to be talking about the Colonial Parkway murders, or the Colonial Parkway serial killer, or killers. They're not sure if it's one or more than one. And we're also going to be talking about the Highway of Tears, which has been requested many, 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 many times. And I actually I wrote about it in Volume 2 of The Faceless Villain, and it's going to be continuing into Volume 3 because, it started in the 60s and is ongoing.
So they're finding dead bodies along these roads.
And yeah.
And it may be one guy, maybe more than one. They don't know.
Yeah. Colonial Parkway is either one person or possibly two. Highway of Tears has got to be several people. Okay. Because it's gone on for so long. The first one that they know of was 1969, and there might have been, more.
Right.
And they actually, some of the cases were solved, and they caught various serial killers, but then when they did DNA on that serial killer and tried to match it with some of the other ones, they didn't match. So the Highway of Tears seems like a situation where it's just a long stretch of road that several killers seem to be using as a hunting ground.
Okay.
For whatever reason.
All right.
As I said, since we've started kind of recording more shows ahead of time, farther ahead of time than we used to. So I kind of regret that we don't get to update new patrons and stuff like that as quickly as possible. But on this one, we actually have 3 new patrons that we wanted to give a shout out to. Their names are Travon, Antonio, and Katrina. So hi, you guys, and thank you very much for your support. Also, if you were a $20 and up patron, you either have already got the mugs that I sent out, or it's on its way to you because I've ordered all of them and they should be on the way there. And we also did a drawing of our under $20 people, and that the winner of that one was Matt, and he got back to me with his address, so I just sent out his mug as well. So in next quarter we'll figure out something else to send. If you got any recommendations, what you might want and stuff, just let me know and I'll see if we can accommodate you. I think that you have some movies.
Yeah.
Don't you? Actually,
I was going to start giving, to certain people, I was going to start giving out some of my old movies.
Yeah.
And they're factory movies in the box. Maybe we'll sign them or something,
Yeah. If
Cheap
you want,
movies.
make a list and I can put, for the next quarter, maybe I can put a list on Patreon and then, people can pick which ones they want.
Yeah. A lot of them are kind of rare classic movies,
Yeah.
Universal Soldier. Stuff like that.
He's got all the shitty movies with 2Ds.
Yeah, well, action movies and stuff. We'll see.
Yeah, totally.
Somebody might want that.
Yeah, and speaking of movies, if you didn't see our last movie review, it was the 1971 vampire movie, Let's Scare Jessica to Death. So go check that one out. A little bit of an underrated gem if you haven't seen it. So go check that out. So without further delay, let's do Colonial Parkway first. I didn't know a huge amount about this case, but it was, it was recommended a bunch of times. So I started looking into it, and it's really interesting because it's another one of those Lover's Lane style murders.
Where is it? Where's Colonial Parkway?
It's actually in Virginia.
Okay.
And this actually happened over about a 4-year period in the 1980s. And it was much like Zodiac or Son of Sam or something like that. It was somebody targeting couples in cars, not shooting them usually. Usually they were stabbed or strangled or both. And it's just like a really, really weird case. I was like listening to this one podcast the other day. I can't remember the name of it, but they had done like a whole 2-part series on it. And it was really interesting, and I kind of got really into it. But as I said, the FBI is kind of on this case, but they're still not sure if this is one guy, a team of 2 guys, or 2 separate guys, or maybe more than 2, because the first case in the series is very similar to like a 5th one that they're not even sure is related, but then the ones in the middle are kind of similar but not. Like the MO is sort of similar but just different enough that they're not entirely sure if this is the same person or if it's like a team of maybe 2. Well, which is rare, but it does happen.
All right, run us through it. Where does this begin?
All right. So the first murder in the series. This took place in October of 1986. Now, there was these 2 women. Kathleen Thomas, she was a stockbroker. She'd been in the Navy, like she was a graduate of the Naval Academy and stuff like that. I think she was about 27. And she was with her girlfriend, Rebecca Ann Dowski, who was a student at William and Mary. Now, these 2, this was 1986. It's kind of rural Virginia. So they were kind of kept their relationship a little bit on the down low. Kathleen's family knew about it and were fine with it. Rebecca's family did not know about it. And a lot of their friends didn't know about it. They kind of kept it a secret because, it was still kind of a thing. Like you couldn't really be open about it. So what they would do sometimes if they wanted, privacy or they want to go on a date or whatever, is they would go out to this Lover's Lane that's off Colonial Parkway. And then, they would just go park So they were doing this on October 12th, 1986, and someone came along and killed them. Now, these 2 women, when they were found, they had been strangled, their throats had been slit, and then whoever had done it had poured diesel fuel all over the car and tried to set it on fire, which didn't work because diesel fuel isn't as... it's not like gasoline where it'll just from a match.
It's flammable, but you gotta
really have to. Yeah, it has like a really high ignition point. So apparently the person freaked out of that, and they tried to push the car into the York River, but it got hung up on an embankment. So that's where the car was found. It was found on the embankment because apparently, I guess the person either didn't see that it didn't go into the water, or they just said, "Fuck it, I'm out of here."
Yeah, probably went down there and they couldn't push it anymore.
Right, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
On it. Yeah.
So these 2 poor girls. Here's the weird thing. Now there was no sign of that they had struggled. The only sign of a struggle was I think it was in Kathleen's hand. She had a clump of hair clutched in her hand, which they presumed was from the killer. Also, their wallets were still there. Neither of them had been raped. So this was not a sexual assault. This was not a robbery. Nothing like that. Now, at first, because of the brutality of the crime, this is classic overkill. Not only were they strangled, their throats were slashed so deeply that they were almost decapitated.
So now it had been post-mortem.
Yeah, right. So, then the person tried to set the car on fire, and then they tried to push it into the thing. So this seemed like a personal attack, a personal vendetta. So in that spirit, the FBI, the investigators, they start looking into, ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, people who might have known them. They also posited, well, maybe this was a hate crime, like somebody that was targeting them because they were lesbians, so all of this kind of stuff. Obviously, they didn't know that this was like a serial killer yet, because this was the first one in the series that they know of. So, again,
it already sounds fishy. Neither one was bound?
No.
How do you strangle one and keep control of the other?
They actually...
sounds like two guys.
Well, that is one of the theories, and they also have a couple of theories about how this person is, approaching them and getting them to comply at first.
He must have a gun, and he gets them to comply somehow. But he doesn't kill them with a gun. He just uses that to keep control of them. The thing is, though, I guess he would have to separate them to kill them. So the other one doesn't know that the other one is strangled.
Yeah.
Maybe he says, if you get out of the car, I'll shoot her.
In one of the reenactments of this that I saw, and I'm not sure how accurate it is, in one of the reenactments, it looked like the person had taken one of them out of the car, killed her somewhere else, and then brought the body back later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's accurate. But that was one of the reenactments I saw showed it happening like that. So there was that whole thing. So nothing ever came of like any of the people that knew them that investigated or anything. So then there wasn't another one for almost a year. Then there was a guy, his name was David Knobling. He was 20. And he was with this girl named Robin Edwards. Now, she was only 14, and some people are, like, raising eyebrows at that. Evidently, from, some of the other podcasts, some of the research that I've done, she acted much older than her age. This was the 80s. I don't think there was quite as much of a stigma about it.
I don't think there was as much a stigma
as now.
How old was he?
20.
Yeah. Age of consent might have been around that time, around that age
is
anyway.
Virginia.
In Virginia, so that might have been legal then.
It might have been, yeah. So, yeah. It is weird, but it's like, I can see why people were like, 20 and 14, that's a little odd. But, by all accounts, she was very mature for her age. She was sexually active and, things like that. So, the two of them go out on a date or lover's lane or whatever the hell it was they were doing. And now these two... They actually found David's car a few days after, like, they went missing. And they found his car. The keys were still in the ignition. His wallet was sitting on the seat. Nothing had been taken. Radio was still on. 3 days later, they found the bodies. Now, these two had been shot. Execution style, like in the back of the head. It looked like what happened was that the person shot the 14-year-old girl, at which point, like, shot her, and then David was either next to her, and then he tried to run away, and then, because he had two gunshots, one in the back of his head and one in his shoulder. So it seemed like the guy, like, shot him, and he fell, and then he kind of, like, caught up with him.
Right.
So, yeah, so there were these two. Again, no rape, no robbery. Nothing like that. Now, this is a significantly different MO than the first crime. So I think at first they didn't really connect them, even though it's similar, lover's lane type thing, double murder of a couple.
It sounds just kind of like an ambush. He ran up on them while they were in the car and opened fired.
Yeah, it sounded something like that, or forced them to get out of the car or something.
Right.
Now, what I'm going to say, I was going to save this till the end, but I will tell you what they were thinking. Because a lot of the victims were found... or their cars were found, like their wallets were found, like on the seat. Most of the cars had the windows rolled down or rolled halfway down. So they started to speculate that maybe the killer or killers was a cop, or pretending to be a cop, or a park ranger, because a lot of it was kind of like, that's like a wildlife refuge type of area, like park, it's a park rangers, or someone pretending to be a park ranger. So someone that would pull you over because they're assuming, people got their wallet out and rolled their window down,
right?
Because they thought it was like an authority figure, like they were being busted for something, right? So that's one of the theories also, because several of the cases had that detail. Of like the wallet being there and the window being down and stuff like that.
Probably impersonating a policeman.
That's one of the theories that they're throwing around. Now, a couple months later, after those two were discovered, David and Robin, then there was another one. So this was Cassandra Haley and Richard Call. Now, they were both college students, and this was like their first date. I think she was 18 or 19, and he was maybe 21, something like that. So they had been at this party in Newport News. This was in April of 1988. And then they left and vanished. Now, these two, their bodies were never found. But listen to this creepy shit. So they go to, I don't know if they went there on purpose or if the killer drove the car there or what, but they found their car, like kind of parked across from like the York River. Richard Call's dad drove the Colonial Parkway to go to work in the morning, and he saw his son's car. It was like a 1982 Toyota Celica. It was red. And he saw it parked on the side of the road, and he thought it was funny because he's like, the door was open, and he stopped, and he looked in there. He's like, the door was open. The keys were in the ignition. The glove compartment was open. But there was, like, nothing. I mean, that's weird, but, like, he was kind of like, well, maybe him and his girlfriend just went down to the beach and fell asleep or something like that. So he thought it was weird, but not weird enough, to kind of take it further or get, like, super upset about it. So he was just kind of like, okay, well, so he just went on to work. Now, a couple hours after that, then the park rangers came and, were like treating it like an abandoned car. Like they had kind of like, taped it off and everything like that. Now, the weird thing about this is when the park rangers got there, they said that there was like clothes and belongings in the car, like Richard's underwear, his wristwatch, his glasses were in the car. Also, Cassandra's purse and her bra and one shoe. Now, the weird thing about that is that when Richard's dad stopped, when he saw the car, he didn't see any of that shit in there. So I don't know if like the park rangers I don't know, like if they took stuff and then they put it back because they were like, oh shit, now it's a missing persons investigation and we like touched it when we weren't supposed to touch it, or if the killer came back or what. But the dad is saying, no, he didn't notice any clothes or anything. He said he thought it was weird because the door was open and the keys were in the ignition still, but he didn't say anything about seeing any clothes in the car. But when the park rangers came a few hours later and were treating it like abandoned car, they said there was a bunch of clothes in there, that it was their stuff. Like in the back seat or whatever. So that was pretty weird.
Got a feeling the killer went back.
Yeah, that's a possibility. He
didn't know the dad was there.
Yeah.
He just, for some reason, he had the clothes with him and he put it back in the car.
Yeah, it had to be something like, and maybe he was even, it's creepy. It's like maybe he was even watching the dad. Like maybe he was coming back and he had the clothes and he was going to put him in the car and then he saw the dad there and he was like hiding and like watching him.
I don't know. I think had he saw the dad, he would have been spooked and then said, oh, fuck the clothes, and then left it with the ghost.
Yeah,
he was going to do something.
That's really creepy. But the fact that they didn't find their bodies, and it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but like I said, the cops at first were like, oh, well, maybe they were just, they kind of took off their clothes and then they went down to the beach to skinny dip. And like the families were like, dude, it was 40 degrees outside. Yeah. No one's skinny dipping in 40 degrees in Virginia. And it's like also where they were parked, they're like, it was really kind of a pain in the ass, like to get down to the water. It was like all these dunes and shit like that. They're like, nobody is skinny dipping from here. That's like the dumbest thing ever. So the cops actually did start dredging the York River, like by there. Now, the weird thing is that they dredged the river and they found a body. And at first they were like, oh, well, but it wasn't either one of them.
There's another body.
It was this other guy. It was like some middle-aged guy who had apparently like fallen out of a boat, like accidentally, and drowned.
How long before?
I don't know.
Okay.
This was like 4 days after they found the car.
Okay.
Like, because they were searching the river. They were dredging the river.
They find random motherfuckers.
Yeah, and they just found like a random body. I'm like, what are the fucking chances?
Oh, here he is. Yeah.
Yeah, because they thought, oh, we found one of them. And then they were like, no, that's like a middle-aged guy. My son is like 21. Yeah, so apparently this wasn't a murder victim, I don't think. It was just a guy that died accidentally. Yeah. So I was like, that's got to be like the craziest thing, especially in like rural Virginia.
Yeah.
It was like finding bodies popping up. Well, we were looking for other ones, but we found this one
instead. So they find him?
No, they never found those two.
Never found him.
Never found those two. Now, the last two that are attributed to the Colonial Parkway serial killer, and that doesn't mean that there weren't other ones that they think might be related, but these are the last canonical ones. Now, this was Anna Maria Phelps, she was 18, and Daniel Lauer, who was 21. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that most of these murders took place on a holiday weekend. And this particular crime took place on Labor Day weekend of 1989. Now, Anna Maria was actually dating Daniel's brother, whose name was Clinton, I think. And they were Daniel was going to be moving in with her and his brother. Like her and the brother were going to get married, and Daniel was moving out of their parents' house, and he was going to move in with them, be like a roommate. And so they were riding together to the house to Virginia Beach. So they take off, they disappear. Later on, their car is found at a rest stop, abandoned. Now, the weird thing about where the car was found was the rest stop was on the westbound side of the highway when they should have been going east, meaning that probably the killer left it there. They probably didn't leave it there. That's what they're thinking.
Yeah, he got in their car and drove it.
And there's evidence to suggest that. Now, all of their stuff was still in the car except for an electric blanket, and they found that later on. But the wallets were still in the car. Their purse still had money in it. Everything.
So this guy doesn't even steal.
No, he doesn't take anything. Dang. Like I said, all the purses, they still had money. All the wallets, they still had money in them. So, and they said another weird thing that they found too was that Anna Maria had, like a roach clip, like a personalized one, it had like feathers on it and stuff.
Back in the day.
Yeah, and she had this. It was 89.
Yeah.
And whoever had killed her, presumably, left it like clipped on the window. Like the window was halfway down, and he left it clipped on there. Like, I don't know if she did that, or if I'm presuming the killer did that for whatever reason. So, later on, I think it was actually 6 weeks later, they found the bodies. Some hunters found it in October 1989, and this was like in the woods near Richmond, Virginia. The two bodies were, horribly decomposed. They had been covered with the electric blanket that the killer had taken from the car. Now, they couldn't determine what Daniel Lauer's cause of death was because he was too decomposed. Anna Maria, they saw that her bones had like a lot of slashes and stuff on them, so they presumed that she had been stabbed multiple times. Now, the car, like the undercarriage of it, there were weeds like stuck on the underside of the car that matched the weeds where the bodies were found. So they're presuming that the killer either was hitchhiking and got in the car, or somehow forced them into the car and then drove them out there, killed them, and then drove the car back to the rest stop and abandoned it. Right? So they're thinking that that's probably what happened. Now, the shitty thing about this is, like, this is the late 80s. They did have DNA thing then, but it wasn't, it wasn't as good as it is now, I guess. So I feel like a lot of the DNA stuff was kind of botched. And in particular, one thing that, like I said, none of the female victims or the male victims seem to have been raped. There was no sign of sexual assault or anything like that. But some people were upset because in the first case, Kathleen Thomas and Dowski, they took rape kits, but then they ordered them destroyed, like without doing them.
Now, hold on. All these homicides.
Yeah.
In what area are we talking about here? 20 miles, 100 miles within each other? What's linking them other than just the MO?
The Colonial Parkway.
Along that Colonial Parkway?
They're along because the Colonial Parkway is only 23 miles long.
Okay, so it's still on that 23-mile road.
Yeah, it's like it's either like right off that road or like within like not a very long distance.
Yeah, and we're talking about how many years? About 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so I guess they're linked.
Yeah. And it does, and like I said, even though some of the MOs were kind of different because some of them were shot, some of them were stabbed.
Sounds like some kind of thrill killer, like kind of like Zodiac, where he thinks he's hunting these people.
Yeah, and you're not the first person to have said that. It's like, you know, I don't think it was the same person as the Zodiac because that person would probably be old as fuck right now. And I don't see some geriatric motherfucker like running around doing this kind of shit. But it was someone like that, someone of the same mentality.
He could drive. He was old enough to drive. Probably had his own car. Probably drove out there.
Yeah.
And then would use their car to drive himself back to his car.
Yeah.
So maybe he would stash his car and walk to the ambush scene. Kill them, take their car, and use their car to drive back to where his was, and then you make a switch. Something like that.
Yeah. Now,
I'd have to see a map.
Right.
You know what I mean? To really kind of figure it out. But he's got to be going to and from those kill zones somehow.
Yeah.
So he's driving, but he's also driving their car. So that means he's setting up somehow.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Because he's not going to drive away from his car using their car.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's taking their car to get back to his car.
To get back to his car, yeah. So like you said, particularly in this last case here, you know, the fact that he just left the car abandoned, and again, door open, whole deal, left it in the rest stop on the westbound part of the highway.
Means he was parked in that rest stop.
That means he probably parked there.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
And then he walked.
Maybe he walked across the highway maybe they stopped at the rest stop because they were going east. They were not going west.
Right.
That's why everyone was confused because they're like, why is the car parked there? Because they were going the opposite direction.
Wherever he's lying in wait, he's walked there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Because he had to use the car to get out of there.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
And now, here's the weird thing is that I'm thinking, like I said, a lot of these cases, because they found the wallets out, and in one case, you know, the glove compartment was open and stuff like that, which seems very much like you getting pulled over by a cop. So this is either a cop or someone who's pretending to be a cop. I'm going with that because it seems like there's not a lot of, they're not really finding a lot of signs of struggle, like with the victims. So I feel like this is a case where somebody thinks it's a cop, you think you're getting pulled over, you're like, oh crap, I'm getting pulled over. He comes up, he asks for your license or whatever, and then he either pulls a gun on you or whatever.
I find it odd that he's not taking the money. He's not even looking in the wallets.
I find that very weird too.
Most serial killers do.
Yeah, because
they look in the wallet, they want the ID.
Yeah.
I mean, who turns down free money?
That's what creeps me out the most. It's like, it weirds me out too that none of the women were raped. But that's less weird than no one taking the money. Like you said, it's like, why would you leave it there?
Why would you leave free money?
From that perspective, if you're going to go to all the trouble to like kill some people and there's some money in the wallet, it's like, why wouldn't you take that?
He must have money.
Yeah,
but
it's
still,
just, that seems very strange.
Why would you walk away from $50, $60, $100?
Yeah.
There's no way to trace that.
It just seems like this is...
He must be so jacked up. Okay,
yeah.
And so into what he's doing, he's forgetting about it.
Maybe that's what it is.
I think he's forgetting to check that. He's getting all this rush of endorphins from this kill, you know, and he's making sure that he's getting a clean getaway, and he's doing all his little things before he leaves, and forgets all about the money. And then probably later on, he's like, oh, you know what? I left those wallets. I didn't even see if there was any money. Next time I'll check. And then the next time he does it,
and then he just gets
he forgets it again. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, that just seemed very, very weird. Because in a lot of other aspects of the case, he seemed to have his shit together. If indeed he is posing as someone else, if indeed he is doing as you said, and he's parking his car in one location and then walking to this other location and then using their car. So it seems in a lot of ways that he's fairly organized.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like he's running around in like a frenzy like a berserker or nothing.
It's almost kind of like he's going through a pre-planned mission. He's got it memorized. Yeah. But he forgot to memorize the part about check that wallet, see if there's any money in it.
Yeah. Now, some have speculated, particularly because the first couple was a lesbian couple. The second couple was, was a big age difference. That this might be what they would call a missionary style serial killer, a missionary type serial killer, one that feels like they're punishing sins.
Yeah.
So that would also
a sin to steal. So
that would also explain why he wasn't stealing the money or
maybe.
Raping the women, because he just feels like it's his righteous duty to kill people that he perceives as sinners for whatever reason in his like crazy fucked up mind. So that's the only thing that makes sense in that context.
Could be.
And I'm going to say, too, because there's another crime that happened later on that is not in the canonical crime, but it sounds very similar, and that was also a lesbian couple. And they think that might have been, if it wasn't the same person that did all the other ones, it was for sure probably the same person that did the first one.
How far away was it from all these murders?
Not very far. Not very far. This is all like the same area. This is all the same area. So the case pretty much, after that one in 1989, the case pretty much went fallow. They really didn't have any leads. They had no idea what was going on. Now, there was kind of a weird thing where a bunch of crime scene photographs, like really the really gross, like gruesome graphic ones, were released, not exactly to the public, but they were released to like police school or FBI school or something for use in like classes without permission. Now, the person that kind of blew the whistle on this, his name was Fred Atwell. Now, this happened in about 2009, 2010. Now, in a way, it was good because him drawing attention to, hey, they're using these like horrible crime scene photos and they're getting out into the public when they're not really supposed to. And we didn't have permission to like release them or whatever. And that actually brought attention back to the case. So they started working on it again. However, Fred Atwell, according to many of the victims' families, I'm not going to say he's a suspect in this shit, but he's for sure a person of interest. Because a lot of the families have said, look, he acts super weird. He is super obsessed with these crimes. He's always trying to like involve himself with the families, like when they do things about, when they like talk to the press about the murders or whatever, he's always like trying to involve himself. And also, he was a cop at one time, but later on, he kind of went off on a life of petty crime. Like he got arrested in 2014 or something like that for like holding up a woman and like stealing $100, like holding her up at gunpoint. Yeah, he didn't hurt her, but he like held her up at gunpoint. So that guy, like I said, I don't think he's like officially a suspect or anything, but some people are like, that's a little weird. But like I said,
because he has the skills needed to make a false arrest on somebody and talk them through it. Maybe he still has uniforms.
Right. So that's what some people were saying, because he did used to be a cop, and it's like
he would know how to carry himself.
And it seemed weird. Even though it was good that he was the one that brought the whole photograph thing to attention and probably drew more, got more attention back on the case again because it had gone cold. That might have been because he was super obsessed with the case, because
like
it seemed
BTK.
Because it seemed like he was always like thinking about it.
BT got mad when he was forgotten. He started calling him and say, "Hey, you forget about me?" Remember
it seemed very much like that. It seemed very much like that. So he's kind of a person of interest. I don't think they have like any evidence for it, but he's kind of like sketchy. He's like a sketchy individual. And like I said, a lot of the victims' families have said that they're creeped out by him and that he does like creepy shit. You know what I mean? That he's always trying to like call them and like get involved and stuff. And they find it very off-putting. So, there's that whole thing. So after that happened in, like I said, 2009, 2010, when the case kind of got more media attention and things, and they decided to kind of, maybe start reinvestigating it, some of the victims' families actually hired a detective named Steve Spingola. He had used to work for the Milwaukee Police Department, homicide detective, and they kind of hired him to look into the case again and see if he could come up with any new leads or anything like that. Now, interestingly, he ended up writing this big long paper. It's like about 40 pages long. And in his opinion, this is not one killer. He thinks that maybe the middle ones were the same killer, but the first murder which was the Thomas and Dowski murder, the lesbian couple, he thinks that was someone else. So he either thinks that all of these were separate crimes or that there are at least 2 different killers, which is not exactly what the families were thinking, because for a long time they were thinking that this was all just one person doing this.
What are the statistical odds, though?
That's what I'm saying. I can see why you would think that, because the MO in the first case and the other ones are kind of different, but not different enough that it would lead me to believe it's necessarily another killer.
If you were talking about a 200-mile stretch of road, I'd say, yeah, maybe. We're talking about a 23-mile stretch of road.
Yeah, this is not a gigantic area.
Yeah, within a few, years of each other. That does sound like a serial killer to me.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not, yes, it's rare for serial killers to change their MO or whatever, but it's not unheard of. And especially one that was early and then like a year later they did it in kind of a different way. And I mean, the fact that he did this big overkill thing, tried to burn the car and everything like in the first case, and then in the second one, he just straight up shot them. There could be a lot of reasons for that. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a different person. Or although, like I said, it could be a 2-man team. It could be 2 guys working in tandem.
Now the second group, they were shot. Was the weapon identified? What kind of weapon it was?
No, because it's everything I saw. They said they didn't. There were no casings. There were no shell casings. They didn't find anything like that. So
Some kind of a pistol.
So yeah, they weren't sure. They knew it was a pistol, maybe a .357, maybe a .38. They weren't exactly sure.
Okay.
But they were kind of the only ones that were shot. And I mean, like I said, the third one, the bodies have never been found, so they don't know what happened there. How they even died. Then some people even speculate, maybe that was an accident, they drowned or something like that, even though I don't buy that. But so that guy's saying this. Now, one thing that is maybe sort of leaning in that direction is there was another crime in May of 1996, and this was very similar to the murder of the Thomas and Dowski murder, like the first Colonial Parkway murder. This was, again, another lesbian couple. Their names were Lolly Winans and Julie Williams. Now, they were on vacation, and they were going up to the Shenandoah National Forest with their dog, and they were doing like a 2-week camping trip. So they go up there. Now, this is actually 180 miles away from the Colonial Parkway. Okay? So, but it's just very similar, like the way it is. Very similar to the first one. So they go to the National Forest. They go camping. They're last seen on May 24th by a camp ranger. He came and gave them their updated permit or whatever, and dropped them off in a parking lot about 5:30 p.m. Now, nobody heard from them. They were supposed to come back. I think Lolly was supposed to be in her friend's wedding on June the 1st, and Julie was supposed to go back to work a couple days after that. But they never came home. So then they just started searching the forest for them. Now, they actually found their bodies on June the 1st near the Skyline Lodge. Now, these 2 had been tied up. Their wrists were bound. Their throats had been slashed, just like the first 2 women. Left to right, indicating a right-handed killer, just like the first 2 women. So they also had their mouths covered with duct tape and stuff like that. Their wrists were tied up with pieces of fabric or whatever. Again, neither one was sexually assaulted. Nothing was stolen. All their stuff was still there. Later on, they found their dog wandering around in the forest, and he was fine. So that seemed, other than the tying up, that seemed kind of similar. And again, this was a lesbian couple. So some people, like I said, have speculated that this crime and the earliest Colonial Parkway crime were maybe the same person, and the ones in the middle were a different person.
Now, how far away was it again?
This was 180 miles away.
I don't think so.
But I mean, 180 miles, you can drive. That's.
Yeah, that was... Somebody else did that.
You think?
I think so. Tying them up. It was just coincidence. Somebody else did that.
But still, not robbed and not raped. That kind of... Because it does seem like serial killers in particular, they're all about that. At least the raping, when they're going to do the women. I think it's more unusual for them not to rape the women. you know? Or it seemed like there's like no sexual motive at all.
Yeah, a serial killer usually has a sexual motive.
That's what I mean. That's what gives me pause about these, because it seems like how rare is serial murder, but then how rare is a serial murder that doesn't take any money, that doesn't rape any of the victims, you know? It just seems really weird to me.
Yeah, that one up in the mountains, though, maybe that wasn't a serial murder. Maybe they just got into an argument with some dude. He got pissed off, beat him up, tied him up, slit their throats. He wasn't even worried about, robbing them. Maybe they got into a pissing match. There's no telling.
Yeah, true.
There weren't any more homicides in that area.
No, there was one from 1984 that they think might have been related, but I'll kind of talk about that one in a minute. But,
it sounds like it might have been some kind of one-off.
Yeah.
That one up there.
Maybe. Now, they did have a suspect for this one. His name was Daryl Rice. He kind of lived in the area. He was like a real, like, woman hater type of person. And he had been, like, convicted of some other things. So they actually put him on trial for this, but they couldn't place him in the forest at the time. He had been there the week before, but not the same week these women were there. And then when they did DNA, because they found some of the killer's hair, like, stuck on the duct tape, and it didn't match. So he was actually let go.
They put a guy to trial for that?
Well, or they said they were going to, or they were trying to. He was a suspect or something like that. Yeah. So there was that whole thing. Now, as I said, because of the windows thing and the wallet thing, the FBI are strongly leaning into the possibility, because this area of Virginia, that's where, like, the FBI headquarters are. That's where, like, the Virginia State Police headquarters are. There's, like, a whole big thing with, like, park rangers and everything, like all right there in that area. So they think it's very, very likely that the killer is someone in law enforcement, or someone pretending to be law enforcement, park ranger, cop, whatever. Even someone like an FBI agent, is anything. So they're just thinking that that's probably the case, because, like I said, none of the victims looked like they had fought the killer or anything like that.
He was definitely local. He was he was from that area.
Yeah.
He knew that area well. That's why he worked it.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying the other two up in the mountains, the other two lesbians, I don't think that's the same guy.
Maybe not.
This guy wasn't going outside his comfort zone, I mean, even guys like Bundy, he was far ranging.
Yeah.
He could kill people all over the United States. This guy's a local.
Yeah.
It makes you want to think that this guy's young too. This might be a guy in his 20s, and maybe not really well, rounded or adapted. Maybe he grew up in that area and that's where he's comfortable. That's what I'm thinking.
I kind of lean toward that too, because this is somebody that is familiar with the area, right. It seems like. And
he's uncomfortable away from there.
Yeah, it seems like he's kind of cruising this road, and he knows where people go, like, to park. Right. And he kind of knows his way around. Those one bodies that took like 6 weeks to find, obviously that was kind of off the beaten trail, so he knew where to put them, where they wouldn't be found.
I think he's kind of like a young woodsman type. He grew up as a early young teenager running around in the woods in this area. He grew up out there. He was comfortable walking around. That's why he was on foot.
Yeah.
And that 23-mile stretch of road, he knew that, that's where he wanted to work, because that's where he felt comfortable. That's just what I'm thinking. That's the feeling I get.
Yeah. And one thing they were thinking too is that they're like, if the same person did the crime in the Shenandoah National Forest, 180 miles away, they said that might actually kind of bolster the theory about him being a park ranger or something like that, because sometimes, like, if a park ranger got transferred into that area,
I think a park ranger would be smart enough to know that would look very suspicious to have.
Or somebody, that's true. But, there was something, like, I saw a documentary about this, and I didn't see it mentioned on, the thing that I was taking notes on, but I saw a documentary that said, apparently, there had been, before the murder started, there had been a couple people that complained about some park rangers in that area of the Colonial Parkway that would come up to your car and, like, look in there and be like, and they were acting really weird and sketchy. You know what I mean? Like, there was one guy doing that. So I don't know if this guy was just, like, psyching himself up, like if he was seeing if he could get away with being a park ranger. Like maybe he wasn't even really one.
Maybe he heard that and was pretending to be a park ranger. You don't know.
Something like that.
I kind of think he was a young guy who grew up in that area, was very comfortable in that area. He considered it to be his territory.
Yeah.
He was kind of a loner.
Yeah.
And just started doing that. That's what I'm thinking.
And some people have been like...
I may be totally wrong, but that's the feeling I get. Because what kind of guy is doing this? Why in such a small area? You know? Why is he taking their cars? He's taking their car to drive to get to his car. Which means he was on foot.
Yeah.
Which, that implies to me a young guy.
Yeah.
He's not afraid of getting dirty. He's not afraid of walking around in the bushes and shit. You know what I mean? And he's walking up to these lover lanes, not from the avenues of approach or the roads.
Yeah.
I think he's walking up to it through the bushes, you know, through the forest.
Yeah.
And seeing who's there and watching it. Killing people and then getting in their cars. And then driving to his car.
And if that is the case, that people did report like a park ranger or somebody looking like a park ranger that would come up to the windows and look in, maybe he was like looking for particular victims.
Right. And he may not have been a park ranger.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He might have just been pretending.
He might have been wearing some clothes that were reminiscent of that because he was a woodsman more kind of guy.
Right.
You know?
And again, like I said, if all of these were done by the same person...
And this would have happened at night, so how the hell could they make a proper ID at night? And he was the guy that probably had the flashlight, which just blinds you when the other guy has the flashlight. That's what people have said too. If he just came up to your car and shined the flashlight on your car, you wouldn't be able to see his face. I think as a woodsman, you know, what you would call a woodsman. You know.
Well, and another detail that a lot of people have kind of harped on is, you know, in the first case, the Thomas Dowski murder, where he tried to, you know, soak the car in diesel. Now, this is interesting because, one, most people don't carry diesel fuel around with them unless they're on a boat, perhaps, or a trucker, maybe. But you'd think that somebody that was familiar with diesel fuel would know that
you have to light it.
That you couldn't light it with just a match. So that seems a little weird.
Maybe he didn't know it was diesel fuel.
Maybe not.
Maybe he stole a gas can from somebody.
And thought,
thought that was gasoline, but it was actually diesel. He pours it in there and tries to light it. He didn't want to blow himself up.
Right.
He just assumed it was gasoline.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, man, this is too dangerous.
It's not working,
That thing's going to, you know, it's going to go boom.
Yeah.
You know, once I touch the lighter to it. Which means that maybe he stole that.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't know it was diesel.
That's kind of good. Because some people have said, oh, maybe he came in on a boat or something like that just because of the diesel fuel, because that's something that people on boats would have.
More likely he saw a can, and maybe that can was in the trunk of the car. They didn't know about it.
Yeah, that could be. I think the car that the first two victims were found in, I think it was a hatchback, actually. Like, from what I saw, because I saw some of the pictures.
That may have been in the back seat.
Yeah, it's possible. Like I said, it's diesel fuel is not something that most people carry around with them, so it just seemed like a weird detail. Like, where did he get that from, or why did he have it? You know what I mean?
Maybe he found it on his way there.
Yeah.
And assumed it was gasoline. He stole it.
Now, another interesting thing, too, that a couple people have pointed out, as I said, that there was actually an earlier murder in a similar area that was sort of the same. Now, this actually happened in August of 1984. And again, this was another couple, Mike Margaret and Donna Hall. They went to a party. They left about 11:45, and they said that they were going to go camping over the weekend. Now, when they didn't come back on Sunday, their families filed missing persons reports. Now, on August 21st, a couple days later, this guy's walking his dog behind these apartments, and he sees a Jeep that's like pulled into like a ditch or something. It's like backed into a ditch. The passenger side door was open. The keys were in the ignition. Ashtray was open. And they found like a bandana like hanging from the rear view mirror. And then there was another bandana tied around the clutch, like the, you know, that thing. Nothing was stolen out of the car. Suitcases in there, clothes, everything like that. The guy walks around behind the car and finds two bodies underneath a blanket. And this is Mike and Donna. Now, Donna was clothed but did not have shoes on. She did not appear to have been raped. They looked like they had drunk a beer, like split a beer, smoked some cigarettes, stuff like that. There were no drugs or anything like that. But then later on, they found that whoever had killed them, presumably, had drugged them with Demerol and then had slit their throats. So I don't know how that happened. Yeah. So they think they died between 1 and 2 in the morning on August 18th. They did find DNA at the scene that belonged to an unidentified third person, but
did it match the hair that came out of the other victim's
not
mouth?
that I know of. I'm not really sure. Like I said, now this happened 2 years before that first one. Okay. So they're not entirely sure if this one was related. This is another possible one that's related, just because it was in a similar area. It was another couple. They were both stabbed. Nothing was stolen.
They were drugged with Demerol, which means you have to have access to their food.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right. That sounds like somebody who knew him.
It might have been very, very well. And they also found some blood in the car that they think was from the killer, because it was like dripped and not splattered, and so like it looked like the killer was like poking through the car for something.
Could have been they took the Demerol themselves.
Yeah, possibly. They didn't find like any drugs, like any drug paraphernalia, like at the scene or anything like that. But when they did the autopsies later, they found that they had been drugged with Demerol, and they also both had their throats slashed. So there's that. So there's that whole thing. So again, this case, I'm sure I left a lot of details out and stuff like that, but I was trying to hit like all the main points. So this person or people is maybe still running around out there. They have no idea who it is. I don't even think they have any suspects for this, other than that one weird guy, that Fred Atwell person that talked about releasing the photos and then was like trying to get all up in the victim's family's business, and later got arrested for holding up a woman and stealing $100. Like I said, he's a person of interest, a little sketchy, but they don't, as far as I know, they don't have any evidence. Like I said, they do have some DNA from some of the crime scenes, but as far as I know, they haven't really like matched anything. I think there was like one investigator said that maybe they were talking about this one guy whose name was Michael Nicolau. And the thing about him is that they know for sure that he murdered his first wife. His second wife, he tried to run her over with a car. I'm not sure if he succeeded. And then he committed suicide. Now, the weird thing about this guy was that when the killing stopped in Virginia, because he lived in Virginia, the killing stopped there, but then he had moved to Florida at that point. And that's when he killed his wife and stuff like that. And he was also living in Vermont during the time when the quote-unquote Connecticut River Valley murders were going on, which I have to do a show about that too, because that's like a huge case that I only just found out about it when I was researching my book, and that's like a whole other shit ton of women killed. But so they're kind of looking at that guy too. They're like, they're not sure entirely if the timelines match up. And this guy is dead now, like he committed suicide later on. But he did seem to be in some areas where some serial killing and some murdering was going on, and it did seem kind of strange that, wherever he moved to, coincidentally, there seemed to be like all these murders happening. So, as I said, that's the only other name that I see come up. His name, Fred Atwell's name, and that's pretty much it. And they really don't have a lot of anything else to go on.
That whole thing about, well, he was there during this time, and then when he moved over there was other murders at that time. I don't really buy that kind of stuff, because there are murders happening everywhere at all times. And people move around.
Yeah.
So no matter where you go in this country, there's some murders happening in that area.
I know, what a happy thought that is.
I mean, I just think it's statistical.
Yeah. Well, they're only saying that because
illusion.
Well, no, they're only saying that because he for sure did kill his first wife and attempted to murder his second wife later on in Florida. So they're thinking, well, he's a murderer for sure. We're just trying to figure out like who else he might have murdered.
Yeah.
Because
a lot of those guys that are into that domestic stuff, they kill girlfriends because they can't control their emotions.
Yeah.
But then them guys, they don't kill people that they don't know. Or random women.
It is kind of like a different dynamic
kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
I
the abusive boyfriend or the stalker boyfriend type. They have that. They have those kind of guys.
Yeah.
So it's usually an emotionally needy dude. Don't leave me, baby. I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah,
if I can't have you, no one can.
That's a different psychological profile.
Yeah.
Than a stranger,
right?
Murderer, like a serial killer type murderer.
So it's not the same thing.
Because serial killers generally don't. I mean, sometimes they'll start out with someone they know or that they kind of know, but then they're
not looking for emotional intimacy. They don't need you.
They're just kind of going. They're looking for objects.
Yeah, they're trying to get off and then go.
Right, for their like own amusement or their own pleasure. Yeah. So it seems like because even like we were saying on the BTK show. You know, some of these serial killers that just kill strangers, they have wives, girlfriends, kids, you know, that I don't know if they care about them necessarily, but they at least don't kill them.
And then if you look at serial killers, they're kind of unlikely to kill the wife or the girlfriend.
Yeah.
Because there's a connection there.
Yeah, because that's like...
It's a different deal.
90% of the time, that's who it is.
Yeah. But the guys that kill their girlfriends, the same guys that stalk their girlfriends, the same guys that beat their girlfriends are real controlling or super emotional, needy type guy, you know. No, don't leave me, baby. I'm going to kill you. Yeah. You know, they're
she
like
can
that.
Never leave me.
What's that? Oh, if you're going to leave me, I can't believe you left me. You know, I'm going to have to kill you now.
Well, yeah. And that's what freaks me out about, like, and this is what makes me mad, like, when people are, like, tell women, it's like, why don't you just leave that abusive boyfriend? I'm like, because that's when it's most likely for him to kill you, when you try to leave him.
Yeah.
Right
well,
there.
If I can't have you, no
They're probably
one can.
fucking scared to death.
I'm going to kill you and I'm going to kill myself. And then he kills the woman. He goes, I can't kill myself.
I'm too awesome.
They're two pussies. I'm scared to kill myself. I'm just going to run. You know, that's what they do. They run. Oh, I got another girlfriend. Yeah, okay, it's going to be great.
And then we'll just renew the cycle.
Yeah, it's a cycle.
It is. It's terrible. All right. So we are going to take a break right now at the moment. Then when we come back...
Yeah, I'm going to fill up and get another drink.
He's going to get another... I haven't even hardly started mine because I was talking the whole time.
I heard on that last show that we were guests on that last show that the ice
is like a third character.
It's a third character.
We were on Conspiranormal.
Yeah.
With Adam saying, we love doing that show.
Adam said, "Man, that ice, Thomm, that ice is another."
You can hear the ice clicking.
Oh man, he had me going last night.
It was. We'll have to I'm not sure when that show's going to go up, but we'll have to tell you about it because I had a good time on that show.
He can remember what I said. I forgot a lot of the stuff that I said.
He loves this show for some reason. Yeah, he remembered the last 6 weeks of our topics.
Yeah,
and
crazy shit that I said.
And then and that too. And I was just kind of well, shit, because I do research for all these shows, but there's only so much information that can fit in my brain at once. So it's like when I have when he's asking me about all these topics from 6 weeks ago, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't even remember what I said.
He wanted me to tell him why was it that Big Jim was drinking hydrogen peroxide.
Oh, and hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah, Big Jim believed that if you put hydrogen peroxide in a spoon and just drink a spoonful of it or so, that the hydrogen peroxide would go into your bloodstream and help oxygen go into your red blood cells. Yeah, so it'd make you more macho. And then
it's carbonating your blood.
Carbonating your blood. And then he'd drink iodine. He'd go, this is that rare earth, deep earth iodine. And he'd put that into water and drink it. But I've heard that iodine's really good for you.
I don't know.
I've heard that iodine's really good.
Now,
they put it in salt.
True.
And evidently, it can kind of raise IQ, give you a little bit. Mental acuity, better mental acuity.
I don't think you need that much of it, though.
No, but he did drink a little bit of iodine.
You do need some, but I don't think... Yeah. I think you get enough from diet.
He was a machinist and a gunsmith. He always had weird shit in his fucking shop. Sulfuric acid, hydrochloric acids, all kinds of deadly poisons.
Man, he could be murdering people and dissolving them in barrels and stuff.
Well, he didn't have a whole bunch of it. It was all stuff dealing with metal.
Yeah.
He had that. What's that? He had lots of cyanide in there. Yeah.
We were just.
It has something to do with bluing metal.
Yeah, that's right. They did use that.
He was bluing metal. Yeah, and he did all kinds of cool shit. He could shoot, man.
I was gonna say though, when you said about hydrogen peroxide, now I never heard of anybody drinking it, but a lot of people use it for a mouthwash.
Yeah, he'd drink it.
I can't. I tried to use it as a mouthwash before, but it's too yucky. I can't. Although
he was the kind of guy.
I cleaned out my ear canals with it. My dad used to do that.
He was the kind of guy that if you questioned him on some shit like that, he'd pull down an Edgar Casey book and the Bible and show you in 3 or 4 different places
here,
where you're supposed to drink some hydrogen peroxide.
That says you're supposed to handle
hydrogen
some poisonous
peroxide is
snakes,
actually
too.
mentioned in the Bible in his mind. He'll find something that sounds.
Though we drink the bottles of hydrogen peroxide.
he would find something that kind of sounds like a description
Making our
of
blood
hydrogen
all
peroxide.
bubbly.
Yeah, he would
Amen.
he'd find something that would like
That's
vague
hysterical.
description of hydrogen peroxide. He goes, yes, that's Jesus knew all about hydrogen peroxide.
He totally did, too. He was chugging that shit. I don't think it'll hurt you. You know what I mean? Well, those big bottles of hydrogen peroxide you get in the store, it's only 1% hydrogen peroxide anyway. It's all water. It's just water with 1% hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah. No, in Big Jim, though, it was probably, a lot
Although it
higher
will bleach
concentration.
your hair if you put it on your hair, and that's probably not good to be drinking.
I could only go in there
It'll
because
just bleach your insides.
I could only go in there because my granddad kind of raised him. He didn't have a father, and this was long before I was born. And my granddad had the model airplane shop.
Yeah.
In Laurel, yeah. He'd throw gliders, and he'd just let Jim come in and
Sniff glue.
no buy model. He'd give him model airplanes.
Just
he'd
wonder.
give him balsa wood model airplanes and
I remember
gliders.
those.
Yeah,
I used to make those.
yeah. Well, they were big ones though.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, big ones.
All right, so we're going to take a break right now so Thomm can get yet another drink and get even more incoherent. No, I'm just
I'm
kidding.
coherent.
I know, I'm just kidding.
I was only incoherent in the Mackinac Island episode.
Yeah, that was another thing that
Yeah.
when we were doing the Conspiranormal show.
Yeah.
He said, Adam Sane, he says, that was your most ADD show. And I said, you
Yeah.
know what? I totally knew that. And it's like, I was going to make us redo it because we
Yeah.
went off on so many tangents. I'm like,
Yeah.
did we even talk about Mackinac Island in there anywhere? We probably did, but maybe for 20 minutes. And the rest of it was just stupid digressions.
If I get really fucked up again, we'll do another one. We'll revisit Mackinac Island. That'll be like a reoccurring
I
thing.
mean, we did talk about it, but it seemed like more than half the show was talking about other shit.
Yeah.
But nobody complained,
No.
I guess.
I was pretty loaded. I don't even remember doing that show.
I know you don't.
Yeah.
Because he was just at the end of the show, he was like,
Yeah.
he was going all like that. It's very funny, though. It's very funny. All right, so we're going to take a break so he can go refill his drink. And when we come back, we are going to talk about yet another depressing case that involves a highway, the Highway of Tears. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
And I think that's why it's so significant, because we are willing to put pen to paper and conclude at the end of the day that this house is very much haunted and will continue to be haunted for a very long time.
What's up, baby cookie? How are you doing today? See, this is where she sits when we record the show. And there's the camera. That she puts her mouth on and tries to eat it. Isn't that right, Pookie? You trying to eat the camera while Mommy and Daddy are filming? Yeah. I know. You're such a cute baby. Such a cute baby. I know you went to the vet the other day and didn't have a good time, but you're alright now. Yeah, it's alright. It's all good.
The Faceless Villain, a collection of the eeriest unsolved murders of the 20th century, Volume 2, includes cases spanning the years from 1960 through 1979, featuring such infamous crimes as the triple homicide at Lake Bodom, the family massacre known as the Good Heart Murders, the serial killings of the Zodiac, Bible John, Jack the Stripper, and the Freeway Phantom, the slaughter of dozens of women and girls along the Highway of Tears and the Texas Killing Fields, and the mysterious death of suspected spy, the Isdal woman, along with dozens of other fascinating and horrifying accounts. Buy it now from Amazon in print, Kindle, or audiobook format.
Okay, we're back.
Here we are.
I'm fired up.
He's refilled
Refilled it up.
got some fried chicken.
Kugel Khan fucking, is revealing himself to me.
Oh.
I fried up some chicken breast, battered it, rolled it through some seasoned flour, fried it up, then rolled it in barbecue sauce that had butter in it. Made you a chicken tender sandwich.
Yeah,
because she doesn't like barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
But
I had it with just a little bit of mayo.
I did that
and some
earlier
pickles.
before the show, but there's leftovers in there, so I walked by those chicken fingers that I made, and I'm sitting there, and
He's in there
putting the barbecue
grazing.
sauce, yeah. Feel good.
It was very good.
Sobered me up, you know.
He's a really good cook, in case I had never mentioned that before, which is good because I hate cooking.
When I wasn't serving in some kind of army or paramilitary unit or something like that, I was cooking, which is about the same, man. Fucking, it's nasty in those kitchens. Fucking hot. But I love to cook.
Yeah. I've never done it in a restaurant or anything, but that looks like one of the hardest jobs.
It's hard. Hot. Very hot.
It's just hot, stressful.
Takes a lot of discipline, it's almost like being an air traffic controller.
Yeah.
Running a line, working on the line. But, you know, doing it professionally in a kitchen isn't the same as doing it at home. At home, you can cook for yourself and
you can make whatever you want.
Make whatever you want.
You can spend all day just kind of messing around with it.
But I like to do pastries and dessert and, you know, main courses and seafood and just everything.
Yeah.
I can make salad dressings. I can do everything.
Plus, he makes really good Indian food.
Make good Indian food.
He can make pretty much
Chinese
anything.
food.
Chinese food.
I can do all that Chinese fast food. Easy.
Yeah. Well, Hungarian paprikash.
Paprikash.
That's like one of my favorite things that you make. All right, so let's
Turkey dinner.
Oh, yeah.
Turkey dinner with a dressing, the stuffing,
now
gravy, everything. Giblet gravy. Make my own cream style corn, but I use it with a Brazilian recipe.
Yeah.
There's real cream in it. It's good.
So fat. All right. So now let's talk about the Highway of Tears. Now this is probably this is kind of a well-known series of murders. And as I said, they just call it the Highway of Tears because it's not one killer. It can't be. They know that it's got to be several killers over several decades. Because as I said, some of the cases, a handful of the cases were solved and some of them were like different serial killers that were operating independently of each other. Now, when they say Highway of Tears, they're generally referring to, it's about a 450-mile stretch of Highway 16 between Prince George and Prince Rupert, British Columbia, Canada. Now, in more recent years, they've also expanded the quote-unquote Highway of Tears murders, the area, to encompass like a couple of other highways, Highway 97 and Highway 5, I think. But generally, when people talk about the Highway of Tears, they're talking about this one particular 450-mile stretch of road. Now, this road borders many First Nations communities, indigenous people of Canada. So there's like a lot of, it's kind of a remote area. There's a lot of poverty. There's not adequate public transportation. So particularly in the 60s, 70s, 80s, what ended up happening was that a lot of the people that were kind of lived in these underserved communities, many of whom were indigenous women, they needed to get to work or school or visit family or go to a hospital or something like that. And they didn't have a car because they were poor and there were no buses or anything like that. So they ended up having to hitchhike. Now, so hitchhiking was very common then and still is in some parts of the area, even though I believe in 2017 they finally established like, a periodic bus service along that route. It took them this long to do it. But prior to that, despite all the murders, despite all the warnings, there's big, huge signs, girls don't hitchhike on the Highway of Tears. All these people are missing with all the pictures and stuff. People still did it because they kind of had to. They didn't have any other way to get around. Now, there is, the thing about it is they're not sure entirely how many victims, because it seems like kind of a thing where, well, we're only going to count these as quote-unquote Highway of Tears murders. And even though there's these other murders and missing people, we're not going to count those because, for some reason, I don't know. So there's criteria. So the task force that was kind of put together to investigate these murders, they called it EPANA, which was named after like a goddess or something like in an indigenous language. And they had 3 criteria. They said, well, the victims have to be women or girls, like female, because most of the victims were teenage girls or, women in their 20s. They had to have been hitchhiking or engaged in some other like quote unquote high risk activity, drugs, prostitution, something like that. And they had to have last been seen around Highway 16 or been found in that area, in that vicinity somewhere. Now, those crimes meeting those 3 criteria, there are 18 of those. However, there are lots and lots and lots of other ones that have some similarities, but not all similarities. They don't fall under that umbrella. They do think in that particular area that there are at least 40 murders and disappearances just in that area of British Columbia, but not all of them fall under that umbrella. So there's like still a lot of controversy about that. Now, this started in late 60s. I think the first one was either 1969 or 1970, although they didn't really do much of anything about it until like the late 90s and like the early 2000s. And because more than half of the victims were indigenous women, there has been like a big, huge thing about, why these murders and disappearances weren't investigated more stringently before, just because, these were poor women, they were First Nations women, if they had been, white women, it probably would have been investigated more. So there's like a whole controversy there too. It is getting better now, like in, I think 2015, they just allotted a lot more money, like trying to figure out, and like I said, they have finally put in some rudimentary public transportation just to try to cut down on the hitchhiking in the area and shit like that.
I think we mentioned this before on some other shows. Traditionally, law enforcement has always used kind of like a triage approach.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of crimes to be solved, very few investigators, and not very much money.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, not everyone gets the same police protection.
No, of course not.
This is something that your average civilian and your average voter and your average person out there discussing politics, they take it for granted that police can protect you. They can't. Not really. You have to fucking cover your own ass. I mean, it's sad but true. The only truly safe society that exists are totalitarian police states, and you're not safe there from the state. So you cover your own ass.
Well, you're not ever safe.
You're never safe.
I mean, that's kind of like where we live right now. I don't ever feel like I'm in danger or anything like that. But I mean,
we're in a good
yes,
in
it could
an
happen.
area that has good cops and a good income. We're a high priority
right but
area.
Not everyone is that.
But not everybody
lucky.
is that lucky because
right.
As
Most
you go down
aren't.
the socioeconomic scale, you got to take care of your own shit. Even in the rural areas, and in Mississippi, no, you better have your own means of protection. You can call the police, but they might get there. It might be 30 minutes from now.
Yeah.
40 minutes. It's just so
They're
rural.
like, yeah, I'll mosey on down there.
Well, for every 10,000 people, there might be 2 cops.
Yeah.
And that sucker's 30 miles away.
Well, and like I said, this particular area, and this has been going on for so long that one seemed like there was some aspect of victim blaming going on. It's like, well, if you weren't hitchhiking, then maybe this wouldn't happen to you. But like I said, the area where they lived, there wasn't really a good way to get around. A lot of them didn't have cars, and it's like, well, I have to get to work and it's far away, or I have to go visit my family and it's far away. It's like, how the hell else are you going to get around? It's like 100 miles. You got to like hitchhike. So, I think out of necessity, a lot of them ended up doing that. But then in a lot of ways, too, then they kind of get blamed when something bad happens to them. Now, it should be noted, too, that British Columbia, for whatever reason, seems to have the highest rate of unsolved murders of Indigenous women in all of Canada. Like I said, for whatever reason. And the Highway of Tears, this particular area, seems to be... And I think we talked a little bit about this on our London, Ontario serial killer capital show, where particular stretches of highway seem to be like prime hunting ground for serial killers because they are remote, because there's a lot of people hitchhiking on them or engaged in other types of activities, a lot of prostitution or whatever. There's a lot of poverty in the area. People won't be missed. There's a lot of places to dump
family
bodies.
Dysfunction.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and there's, like I said, there's everything that comes with poverty, family
right.
dysfunction, drugs, all that kind of stuff, too.
That seems like that would be irrelevant, but it's very relevant.
It is, yeah.
if you kill a girl from a let's say a noble family, she's immediately missed.
Yeah.
You kill one of these girls from a dysfunctional family, it might be months before they notice she's gone. Literally.
Well, because
they're all on drugs, and she's been disappearing anyway. It's that kind of stuff.
And yeah, that was sometimes like some cases I wrote about in my book. It's like, sometimes the girl, and it sometimes it wasn't even like drugs or anything like that. It's just the girl was a runaway.
Yeah.
She would go stay at her friend's house and not tell us where she was. So we
don't see her. She's not around much.
Right. So she would get murdered, and they wouldn't find her for like months and months because they just figured, oh, she's off staying with friends somewhere. It's kind of hard to think of like people that grew up in families that actually like cared about where you were. Yeah, but not everybody has that.
If you're in a first world country in the middle class, that might come as a
blow
shock.
Your mind, yeah.
But no, there's a lot of people down the working class and in poverty where you ask them where are your kids, and they go, I don't know. They come by every now and then.
Yeah, it's just like they come and go. They stay with their friends. I don't know where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does happen.
Yep.
And I think that was kind of the case with some of these. And like I said, because so many of the girls were hitchhiking, but like I said, most of these girls were like just teenagers. They're 14, 15 years old, hitchhiking to go see their friends or whatever. And then they just either are never seen again or they find them dead somewhere. And, so yes, they were investigated, but it wasn't really investigated to any degree. I don't think they didn't really codify this whole Highway of Tears thing until much later on, many decades like after the crimes had started. Now, like I said, these crimes are connected in proximity, but probably not in, perpetrator, because there's for sure like a bunch of people doing these. Because as I said, this is like a prime hunting area. So these crimes had been going on since I'll get into the victims in a minute, but these crimes have been going on since about the late 1960s. Finally, it's about 1981. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, they finally kind of get their stuff together. They get a conference and they're like, okay, look, there's all these unsolved murders and like unsolved disappearances like happening in this particular stretch of road. Maybe we should kind of like put a task force together, do something about that. So they kind of got all that together and got all these cases together. The interesting thing is that if you go on the Wikipedia page for the Highway of Tears murders, they have like a chart, this big, huge chart of all the victims, how old they were, like what year they disappeared, where they were found, or if they were ever found. And then they kind of have like the description of what happened to them. Now, only a few of those, like I said, are official like E-Pana Highway of Tears murders. And some of the ones they put in there seemed not serial killers, because some of them they knew who did it. Like some of them it was like their boyfriend or their stepdad or something like that. A couple of them were like arsons that like killed the whole family. So I'm not really sure what connects all these particular crimes that they put on the Wikipedia page, because some of them didn't seem to have anything to do with like a serial killer that was picking people up and killing them and dumping them. So if you want to go look at that, I'm not going to go into that whole list because it's fucking gigantic. And a lot of the cases seemed like they were not really relevant to the Highway of Tears thing, and I'm not really sure why they're in there. But not like it's not a terrible murder, but I don't think they had anything to do with this particular series. So like I said, 1981, they got all this shit together and started kind of trying to put together some, reason why this was happening, trying to find some suspects, things like that. So then they're doing that, and then it takes till 2005 before they finally put together the E-Pana thing that we've been talking about. Now, initially, there were only 9 victims on it, 9 women. Because 3 of the victims that they were looking at first, and this was Alicia Germain, Roxanne Thiara, and Ramona Wilson, the murders of those 3 girls were so similar that they said, okay, well, maybe this is a serial killer or several serial killers. So we're going to put all these under the same umbrella. As I said, now at first they only had 9, but then they decided that they were going to expand the reach out a little bit and kind of take in a little bit more of Highway 97 and Highway 5, which kind of connects to Highway 16. And then they went up to 18. So as I said, E-Pana, Highway of Tears murders, officially 18, probably more like 40 something, they're thinking. So as I said, there was kind of like a criteria that you had to do. Now, in 2005, I think one of the things, like I said, that people kind of got upset about, when they started this E-Pana thing in 2005, it was not only in response to these 3 particular cases being very similar, but also because this one girl, Nicole Hoar, who had gone missing. Now, she was one of the only ones that was not indigenous. She was a white woman. So people were like, oh, well, now you care about it. Now that a white woman disappeared, now you're doing something about it. So there was that whole thing too. And like I said, there's still like a lot of bad blood between the investigators and between like the First Nations communities, because they're like, it's kind of too little too late. We've been telling you to do something about this for like decades and no one listened to us, and all these people were vanishing and stuff like that. But like I said, they are doing something about it now, as I said, even though it's kind of too late now. So now let's talk a little bit about, I'm just going to do like a little bit of these. These are like the official Highway of Tears victims. Now, your first one, Gloria Moody. Now, she was 27 years old, had 2 kids. She was last seen leaving a bar in Williams Lake, British Columbia, and then her body was found on 26th of October, 1969. Most of these women were, the causes of death were kind of all different. Some were stabbed, some were shot, some were strangled. Almost all were raped, as far as I can recall. But like I said, no one is speculating that this is all the same person, but there's definitely some truckers or something like that. Like, there's several of them operating in this area. The next one was July 1970. This was Micheline Pear. She was hitchhiking in Hudson's Hope, British Columbia, along the highway, and then her body was found August 8th, 1970. She was 18 years old. Next one was Gail Ways. She was 19 years old. She was also hitchhiking in October of 1973. Her remains were not found until April 1974. Now, they actually had a suspect in her death. This was Bobby Jack Fowler. Now, he's this American serial killer, and they actually had some evidence linking him to a few of the other victims on this list. They didn't have enough evidence to convict him in the particular case of Gail Ways, but they're pretty sure that he was the one that did this. He did at least 2 or 3 of the other ones that they know of. So there's one serial killer right there. And there's like 2 or 3 other ones too that they're looking at that they think did some of the other ones. Now, the next one was Pamela Darlington. She was also 19. She was found in a park in November of 1973. They also think that Bobby Jack Fowler, American serial killer, was responsible for her death as well, but don't have enough evidence to pin it on him. The next one was Monica Ignis. She was 15 years old. She was last seen walking along Highway 16 in Thornhill in December of 1974. 4 months later, her body was found a few miles east from where she disappeared. The next one was Colleen McMillan. She was 16 years old. In August 1974, she left her house and she was going hitchhiking along Highway 16. She was going to visit a friend of hers, and a month later, they found her body. Now, Bobby Jack Fowler did kill Colleen McMillan. They got DNA off her body and they matched it to him in 2012. Now, Fowler died in prison in 2006. So he's dead now, but they know for sure that he killed her. They have DNA evidence, and they suspect that he killed some of the other ones as well. Not all of them, because, he wasn't around. And there were some that happened after 2006, too. So like I said, this is more than one.
I don't even know this guy. Maybe we should do a show on him.
Yeah, well, like I said, we're trying to get around to doing all these serial killers and stuff.
There's just so many.
There's so many.
You got to write that book.
It's so rare.
So many murders.
So many murders.
There's a lot of them.
Well, and so many serial killers. It's like every time, and you guys that give me recommendations, like in the comments, like some of you guys come up with serial killers that I have never heard of before. Yeah. And I'm super into this true crime shit. Like I write about it and stuff, but every day I'm coming up with here's another serial killer that I haven't heard of. And it's, we talk about how rare it is, and it is, but I guess there's so many people in the world, and you're going back in history too, because some of them are dead now, like some of them are a long time ago, but it really is alarming, that the same handful of them get talked about, but there's so many other ones that just never get brought up. Yeah. Even ones that killed the same number or even more people as some of the ones that everybody knows.
Yeah, because some are just generic stranglers.
I guess.
Don't hear much about them.
Yeah, and there's nothing quote unquote splashy about them or something. I don't know. I was kind of thinking about this the other day because somebody mentioned something in the YouTube comments. I was like, what is it about some serial killers that make them more memorable than other ones? You know what I mean? It's like, when you get ones like Ed Gein, it's like, I wear people's skins and so, okay, now people are going to remember that kind of shit. But what makes somebody more like, what made like BTK?
BTK, because that case was out there for a long time, and then when they found him, look at Dennis.
True.
Look at him. Look at Dennis.
Yeah.
I got sexual problems. You know what I mean? That's enough. You're gonna remember
Dennis
that.
Sexual problems.
Yeah, I got. Well, they got very upset.
They got very upset.
Yeah, and he did the whole.
I just want to punch him right in the fucking balls.
Yeah, the whole courtroom confession that went on. You know what I mean? Of course, you're not gonna forget that. But then you look at like lose little Gary Ridgway, that little fucking worm. You know what I mean? The only reason why you remember him is just what a worm he was.
And but there's other ones that are wormy like that too, but people don't remember them.
Well, they remembered him because of sheer numbers.
Yeah, true.
There's so many of them that he killed and left them along the Green River Killer, along the riverbank, that it built it up. He built himself up to be something, and then when you finally see him, he's just a little worm.
Well, aren't they always though? That's what I kind of feel like. That's why, and I think I said this before. It's like we really don't like want to glamorize these guys or anything like that. But it's like
the dudes are all shitbags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just because every time you see him, it's like I don't know. You build him up in your head as like some big monster or something, and then you see him, it's just some schlub.
They're nobodies.
He looks like David Berkowitz for Christ's sake. You know what I mean? But we should do a show about Bobby Jack Fowler because he did kill a bunch of people, including like they think a bunch of the Highway of Tears people. Not all of them, but he probably did some of these. Now the next victim, this one was just a little girl. She was only 12 years old. Monica Jack. This was in May 1978. She was actually not hitchhiking or anything like that. She was just riding her bike down the street in Merritt, British Columbia. Now, actually, she disappeared for a really long time. They didn't find her body until 1996. Now, they actually caught the guy that did hers, and this is yet another serial killer, Gary Taylor Handlin. He was 67 when they caught him. They charged him in 2014. He had also killed another little girl who was 11 named Catherine Mary Herbert. That was unrelated to the investigation, but he killed her as well. Now, he says that he didn't kill Monica Jack. I think he did confess to killing the other girl, but the investigators say no, that he confessed to an undercover officer. He actually went to trial in 2018 in British Columbia, and it was just like a few months ago that he was found guilty. January 2019, he was found guilty of both of the murders of the two little girls. So that's another fucking multiple killer that nobody's heard of, Gary Taylor Handlin. Okay, so the next one was Maureen Mosey. She was actually 33 years old. She was also hitchhiking near Salmon Arm, British Columbia, on the 8th of May, 1981, and her body was found on a lane off of Highway 97. Again, she was one of the ones that was added later when they expanded the locale a little bit. There was another one named Shelley Baskew. She was only 16. She was walking down the street in Hinton, Alberta. And actually, she disappeared on May 3rd, 1983. Body has never been found. Alberta Williams disappeared in August 1989 at the age of 24. Her body was found several weeks later near Prince Rupert, British Columbia. The next one was Delphine Nicole, disappeared on June 14th, 1990. 16 years old, also hitchhiking on Highway 16. She was never found. There was another 16-year-old, Ramona Wilson, hitchhiking to her friend's house in Smithers, British Columbia on June 11th, 1994. Her remains found April 1995 alongside Highway 16. There was another one, 15-year-old Roxanne Thiara, disappeared November 1994. Body found off Highway 16 near Burns Lake, British Columbia. Alicia Germain, 15 years old.
Tell you what, this guy's got something for young women, doesn't he?
Yeah.
These are all 15, 16, 15, 16.
Yeah, almost all of them were teenagers.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it's trouble in that area to have all them little teenagers walking around.
Yeah.
Unaccompanied.
Yeah.
Yeah, damn.
Well, like I said, it seemed like I was watching a documentary about it that had been made, I think only a year or two ago. And the guy that was out there, he was out there at the Highway of Tears, and there were people hitchhiking.
Yeah.
Like behind him. He's like, look, there's somebody hitchhiking right now. Even though it's like I said, they have a huge, huge sign.
They have cars.
Don't hitchhike.
Yeah.
It's like, what else are they supposed to do?
No money,
they have to get around.
I'm
glad they finally put a bus there, but geez.
Take it for granted here in the United States, man, cars are cheap.
Yeah.
You get a car for $500. You know what I mean? Well, those girls are too young to be driving anyway.
Yeah, a lot of them are too young to drive.
You can get a permit at what here? I think you can
15.
15, you can get a permit?
You can get a permit.
And you can get a license at 16.
At 16.
Right.
Yeah. Permit, you can't drive at night unless you're going to work, and you have to have somebody else in the car with you that's like over 18.
And for you people that don't live in the United States, yes, cars are that cheap here. Anyone can buy one.
It's not so much buying the car, it's just like paying for insurance and paying for maintenance and gas and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, some states you don't need the insurance except maybe, I think they all kind of have the no fault or what is it, liability.
You have to have PIP and liability.
Okay.
And if you're making payments on the car, you have to have full insurance. You can only just have PIP and liability, which is all I have because my car is paid off.
And we're talking about a socioeconomic class that couldn't afford the $300 a month. Total expenses of gas and the...
That's what I mean. It's not so much just the buying the car that's a pain. It's like all the maintenance
they can't
that
afford
you
the
have.
gas.
Yeah, they just can't afford the gas to get around. Yeah. Because where they live is kind of like out of it.
Right.
You know, they live on like First Nation settlements and
There's
stuff like
there.
that. There's nothing there, so it's like if they have to go to work or college or whatever, it's like they have to go a long way.
Yeah. You
so
can't
even if they had a car,
the
gas and shit would probably kill you. Yeah, so it's like I said, you can tell them all day long, please don't hitchhike, but what else are they going to do? They got to get around. You can't just like sit at home.
But now they got a bus.
Yeah, it's not great. I think it only comes like once a day or something, but it's better than nothing. Because before there was nothing. Until 2017 there was no bus.
That makes me think that whoever's doing this is a local, and it's somebody like a truck driver. It's somebody who...
I kind of feel like this is a trucker. Well, this is like
trucker.
several truckers, I think.
Yeah, it's guys that go down that area
truckers.
and they go, they got all them young girls down there, they're hitchhiking, and they're taking advantage of that.
Yeah, of course.
They're raping the girls and killing them.
Yeah. And like I said, this has got to be more than one. I'm thinking this is probably more like fucking 5 or 6 of them running around up there.
And it's got to be a trucker lane.
Yeah.
Because you had that one trucker. I mean, truckers do this every now and then. Not all of them. You know.
Well, obviously. But I said, among serial killers, trucker is one of the highest professions.
Remember that one? Remember the guy that they got here? He was the one that they called him Old Whips and Chains. That was his. That was his handle on the CB. That was back in the 90s.
Red flag.
Yeah, he was taking pictures of the girls before he killed them and shit. Man, he was nasty. He was doing all the BDSM in the back trailer. Cops got him.
Yeah.
And they had the girl chained up.
Well, that's the thing. It's like most truckers are lovely, but among serial killers, that is like the top profession, or like at least in the top 3. Because look how you're unsupervised for long stretches of time. You're driving all over the country. You know, you're going from place to place. It's very, very easy to pick somebody up at a rest stop or pick somebody up like that and then just dump them, have several hundred miles down the road, and no one would ever associate you. It's just like, if you're already of that inclination, it just seems like the temptation would be too much for you.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like the Highway of Tears murders, I definitely feel like...
This sounds like a trucker.
Well, or many truckers.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of truckers or people that are just traveling through that area.
Somebody that takes that route regularly. Maybe just a delivery man.
Yeah.
You know,
something like that.
Something like that.
But yeah, so where was I? Yeah, okay. 1994, Alicia Germain, she was 15 years old at the time of her disappearance. Body found near an elementary school close to Highway 16 in December of 1994. Then there was Lana Derrick. She was 19. She disappeared on October 7th, 1995. Last seen at a gas station near Terrace in British Columbia. She was traveling east on Highway 16 to her home in Hazleton. She was actually a college student. Her body was never found, so she is still missing. Nicole Hoare from Alberta. She was working in Prince George. She planted trees. Last seen hitchhiking from Prince George to Smithers on Highway 16. She was 25 years old. Body never found.
You ever seen pictures of these girls?
Yeah, I've got pictures of all of them.
Do they all look about the same?
No.
So there's no
There's
type.
no type.
There's no type.
There's no type. They're all pretty teenagers, but they all you know.
Could be anybody.
Okay. Yeah, some of them have red hair, some have dark
Okay.
hair, some are blonde, some have short hair, some have long hair. I didn't really notice a type among them. You know. So, yeah. So, Nicole Hoare disappeared in 2002. So, like I said, this has been going on like a really long time. The next one was Tamara Chipman, also 22 years old. She disappeared on September 21st, 2005, last seen hitchhiking on Highway 16. She was never found. And there was a girl, the next one was Ayla Sarek Auger. She was 14, student at D.P. Todd's secondary school in Prince George, British Columbia. Last seen by her family on February 2nd, 2006. Body found February 10th, 2006 in a ditch along Highway 16. Now, those are the canonical EPANA. Those are the 18
What in
canonical.
general is the method? Strangulation?
Generally, yeah.
Okay.
Most of them are sexually assaulted. I think a few of them were stabbed. I don't remember if any of them were shot or not. You know,
Canada doesn't have handguns, so they're a
yeah,
little
but I
more
think
rare.
some of them were. Some of them might have been, but I think in general most of them were strangled or stabbed.
Okay.
And I think almost all of them were sexually assaulted, if not all of them. And like I said, some of them they haven't found, which isn't that unusual because, like I said, this is a very remote area. It's a long stretch of road, and there's like not a lot of stuff. The soil is soft. There's like a lot of animals running around up there that would eat bodies and stuff like that. So it's not surprising that some of them have never been found. Now, there are also some more cases that are like adjacent, and particularly a lot of the indigenous communities in the area are like, you know, trying to bring more attention to these other cases because they're like, look, this might not be, you know, it doesn't meet like all three of your criteria for EPANA, but these are still like girls that went missing from this area and stuff like that. So these were ones that are like kind of outside of the investigation, but still adjacent. Helen Frost, 17 years old, also living in Prince George, British Columbia. She disappeared on October 13th, 1970. Never found.
Long time ago.
Yeah. Virginia Sampier, 14th of October, 1971, standing near a bridge on Highway 16. Last time she was seen, and she was 18 years old, never found. Cecilia Nicole, 15 years old, last seen in 1989. Now, they're not sure about her because her family said that they saw her, they knew that she was along Highway 16, and that's where she disappeared from. For whatever reason, police think she vanished from somewhere else, from Vancouver, so they're not counting it in the same, you know, victim pool, I guess. But so there's kind of some argument there about that. Dina Brame, she was 16 years old. She was hitchhiking in September of 1999, and her body was found in December of 1999. Then there was Bonnie Marie Joseph, 31 years old, last seen in Vanderhoof, British Columbia, in September of 2007. I don't think she was ever found. Yeah, she was never found. She was also hitchhiking. Madison Scott, known as Maddie, she was 20 years old, missing on May 28th, 2011. She actually went out camping with a bunch of friends at Hogsback Lake. There was like a big party. Everybody kind of left her there on her own, and she just vanished. They found her pickup truck still parked there, with all her stuff still in it, her cell phone.
That's weird.
And stuff
Somebody
like that.
showed up there. They saw the party and showed up there and found her.
I guess.
Yeah, it had to have been.
Yeah.
They saw the party and then saw people leave.
I actually saw, they did a 48 hours about the Highway of Tears, and it was mostly focused on this particular victim, Madison Scott. And they talked to this one girl that was like kind of a friend of hers, and apparently she had been at the same party, like at the campground, and she was the last one to see Madison, and she gets like death threats and hate mail because they're like, why did you leave her there by herself?
Oh, yeah.
Like, because her and her boyfriend like left, because I think what happened was this girl's boyfriend got like injured, like he fell or something like that, and so she was going to take him somewhere, and then she says to Maddie, well, why don't you come with us? And Maddie's like, no, I'll be okay. And then she got left at the campground by herself, but then she disappeared.
Maybe, did her car start? Maybe she couldn't start her car.
Oh, I don't know. They didn't say anything about that. I mean, they did find her car. They found her cell phone was in the car.
How long would she be waiting around there?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think they left and then somebody else pulled up.
Yeah, might have been.
Which prevented her from leaving.
Yeah, might have been.
Maybe somebody she knew.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Something
but,
fishy.
Yeah. There's like big signs of
Something
her like
fishy.
all over.
Right.
Let's see. The next one was Immaculate Basil, also known as Mackie. That's not a great name. That's a great name. And this girl is also missing. She was last seen walking on a Forest Service road northwest of Fort St. James, British Columbia on June 13th, 2013. She has never been found. She was 26 years old. Anita Thorne, she was actually 49 years old. She was last seen November 19th, 2014. They found her car the next day at a Highway 16 rest stop, but she has never been found. She disappeared. Now, this one is actually kind of creepy, and I don't know if this is related or not. This was a whole entire family that went missing. So this is Doreen Jack and her husband Ronald. Now, he got a call from this dude that he kind of knew that was like offering him a job, right? So they met at this pub and they were talking about the job, and then it was like at a logging camp or something. So he's going to go get the job. So he packs up the family. It's him and his wife and their 2 kids. They had a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old, 2 little boys. And they pack them up in the car and they're going to go out to this logging camp where the dude's going to get the job. And the last they heard from them was the husband, Ronald Jack, called his mom from a resort at about 1:30 in the morning in 1989. And that was the last time anybody heard from any of them.
Now the guy
they are all gone.
The guy who placed the ad for the job, did he check out as being legit?
I suppose so, because no one ever said anything about him being a suspect or anything like that. But this whole family like disappeared.
Weird.
Yeah, husband, wife, 2 little boys. So they're all gone.
That's
now,
because those 2 guys would was it Charles Ning and Leonard Lake?
Yeah,
they'd place ads. Remember? No, they would answer ads.
Yeah,
and kill whole families. Remember that?
Yep.
Usually about video equipment.
That's right. I had forgotten all about that.
Yeah.
See, we did a show about them, and I didn't even remember that they did that kind of shit.
Right.
Ugh. I'm terrified to like answer ads from them. I'm not going to anyone's house. I'm not doing nothing like that. Yee. Now, as I said, a few of these have been solved. Colleen McMillan, the 16-year-old, they know for sure that Bobby Jack Fowler killed her because the DNA matched. They also suspect that he killed Gail Ways and Pamela Darlington. They were both 19 years old, but they never had enough evidence. But
this
pretty
dude,
sure
he goes after them young, man. It's constantly 14, 15, 16, teenagers.
Yeah. Well, like I said, almost all of these women were teenagers. Yeah. All these girls were teenagers. As I said, Gary Taylor Handlin was also convicted of the murder of Monica Jack, who was one of the Highway of Tears victims, as well as another little girl who was 11 years old. Now, there have been no new cases added, even though people are still, like women are still going missing and getting murdered every now and then in this area. But no new cases have been added to the official EPANA investigation since 2007. Now, as I said, other than Gary Taylor Handlin and Bobby Jack Fowler, there are also 3 other serial killers that have been charged in various cases that are like adjacent to this area. And these are Brian Peter Arp, Edward Dennis Isaac, and Cody Lejebikoff. Now, this guy, this third guy, I think he was like Canada's youngest serial killer. He looks totally like just a high school kid, like this little blonde, dumpy high school kid who would be like on the football team or something like that. He looked just like that. And he's a fucking serial killer.
Damn.
I looked him up on the thing because it's weird because I looked up Brian Peter Arp and Edward Dennis Isaac, neither one of whom have Wikipedia pages for whatever reason. But Cody Lejebikoff, they talked about him a little bit more. And they talked about him on that 48 Hours show too, because he was kind of like suspected in some of these murders too, like the more recent ones, because he's like super young. So they know that he didn't do like any of the older ones, obviously, because he's not old enough.
Right.
Because like I said, he was like a fucking college student, or so he was like fucking 19 or some shit. But he's just like, I know that serial killers don't look like, they don't have horns or anything like that, but he really, really did not look like a serial killer. I was like really surprised like to see that guy. But so, yeah, that was that whole thing. So, as I said, even the ones that they suspect, but some of them are dead, so they can't really do anything about it. Some of these cases are so old, or they weren't really investigated very well at the time, so they don't really have enough evidence or anything like that. So there's that whole thing. So that's pretty much where they stand at it right now. Like I said, I can't remember the name. What is the name of this one true crime show that has Dark Minds or Dark something like that?
I don't know.
And it has like this guy, he's like a crime writer or a crime journalist or something like that, and he hosts it. And I can't decide whether he's like the most annoying douche in the universe or if he's kind of awesome. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean.
If you've seen the show, you'll know what I'm talking about. He's very over dramatic. You know what I mean? Which, in a way, like, is kind of annoying, but it's also kind of amusing, I guess. I don't know.
Well,
I can't decide how I feel about it.
The quality of television has kind of gotten bad over the years.
I'm not really sure what channel this is on or how old it is. I just see them on YouTube, but it's like, you know what I mean?
Based on what you said, I'm agreeing with you. It's a couple of different guys over the years doing this.
Yeah, this is several serial killers going through the area going, oh, look at this prime target-rich environment.
Right, and they're hearing about it in the media.
Yeah.
It's part of their normal route. I think some of them, they live in that area, or they're truckers or delivery guys, and they're going like, hey, man, from what we've been hearing, this is where you go to do this.
Wouldn't it be horrible if there's like a serial killer like network where it's like they're calling each other up and they'd be like, hey man, go to this one road and that's not that crazy.
That doesn't have to happen though. They just go on the news
and be like,
and they hear about all these girls being dumped along this road, and they're going, and the guys who haven't done it yet are like, oh, they're dumping them along those roads because it's a target-rich environment. All those poor Indian girls down there.
Yeah.
So they start running that route. And they're like, oh, yeah, through certain hours, it's good.
Yeah, there's
like all these girls moving around. They're like, yeah, this is the place to do this.
Yeah.
Because they have a high population of very low-income girls that are hitchhiking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's shitty, too, because it seems like a lot of the victims, like when I first started reading about this, and it depends on what site you read, or it depends on, like, what documentaries you watch about it too, because it seemed like some of the stuff that I was watching were like kind of categorized the victims, like a lot of them, they were prostitutes, but a lot of them weren't. A lot of them were just teenagers that were like going to their friend's house or like going to their grandma's house or something.
Bundy would say, oh, that's bottom feeding.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd go for the rich college girls.
Well, yeah.
That's bottom
like
feeding.
That made him somehow better.
Yeah, that's bottom feeding.
Douche. Speaking of douches. Jesus Christ. But yeah, so definitely this is more like this is more kind of related to what we were talking about when we did the London, Ontario show, where it seems like it's just there's something about this particular location. Like I said, it's a target-rich environment. There's all these teenage girls that
they're low income,
and people have a perception of them being more disposable or no one will miss them or whatever, and they're just standing there like thumbing a ride. So it's like it's easy to get them.
The guy who's doing it isn't worried about this concept of, well, no one will miss them. Yeah, he knows they'll miss them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They're low income. They have to hitchhike. That's the weakness they're going for.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll get into the car with you.
Yeah. So I feel like this is more like a location-based situation more than like a serial killer-based. Whereas the first one, when we talked about Colonial Parkway killer, I'm leaning toward that being one guy or a pair of guys that are working together.
I think most of those crimes were done by one guy, and that was his stomping ground. He knew that area really well.
I definitely get even though the MOs were different, they weren't different enough to make me think that it was a different person. Because it's not a gigantic area.
He was a guy who was kind of like an incel loner, not real popular, spent a lot of time in the woods, and thought he was Jason or something. You know what I mean? He was a guy like that.
Yeah, that's actually kind of interesting because that you say that.
Immature.
Because Jason Voorhees, he's not a rapist.
No.
He doesn't steal anything.
No.
He just goes and kills people with his machete just because.
Because they're having sex.
Yeah.
The counselors are
and
having
that
sex.
Might be exactly what this is.
Yeah.
Like I said, it almost seems more like, well, in the Friday the 13th movies, and I know this is like a weird tangent to go off on, but he wasn't doing it for sin purposes necessarily, but he was doing it to punish them.
Yeah.
Because you guys were having sex when I was drowning in the
he's out
pond.
there.
Yeah.
Doing that shit, yeah.
So the guy that did the Colonial Parkway killings, he might have the same type of mindset. Like, he's punishing them. Because it does seem like he's picking either lesbian couples or couples in cars that are making out. And maybe he thinks, oh, well, you guys aren't married. Why are you banging in a car? You shouldn't be doing that.
I wouldn't read into it too much.
No, I'm just saying. Well, I'm not the first person that said that. They said that this could be like a missionary type killer. Like, he thinks he's punishing people.
I think he's just some.
Because he's not stealing anything. He's not raping anybody.
He's a backwards incel. Doesn't know very many people. Living at his mom's house. Listen to heavy metal movies.
Occasionally
go out and killing people. Yeah.
Hey, don't shit on heavy metal listening people.
No, but
people that listen to heavy metal and goth are actually way nicer.
I was actually, though, a heavy metal guy. I'm just talking about.
I know.
Remember that? What was that? Super 8. Is that the name of the movie where the guy listened to Danzig and he's going out and he's doing snuff flicks?
I don't even think I saw that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, so I don't know what you're talking about.
8mm or something like that. I think it was like 8mm. Long time ago.
Oh, okay. Like, I've heard of a movie called that, but I didn't know that was what it was about because I haven't seen it. But yeah, so I think these are two different, like, completely different situations. Highway of Tears is definitely just, this is a stretch of road that is remote, that has, like, a lot of people hitchhiking on it. And, you know, if you were so inclined to serial kill...
Yeah, I'm inclined to serial kill.
Yeah, well, and we're very upset about it. Yeah. But this is a place where you would go where you would probably, you know, get away with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think this is at least, I'm going to say it's at least 5 dudes. At least.
Over
if
the
not
years.
more.
Over the years.
Over the years.
Yeah, well,
like, I don't think they're all operating at once.
The media kept advertising it by talking about it.
Yeah.
Talking about the girls that were missing and the bodies that were found. So... The guys that
the shitty thing is that you have to talk about it because it's like you want those people found.
But the guys that were in on it were like, why are they all dying along this road? And then they go drive it and they go, this is why. Yeah.
I don't understand these people's mindset at all. But yeah, because this has been going on, like I said, since at least 1969. Yeah. And it's still going on now. There's still people like disappearing nowadays and still turning up dead nowadays. So, at least they put a fucking bus there. Like I said, I think it's only once a day or once every other day or something like that, but it's fucking better than nothing. Please stop. Please don't hitchhike. I know that sometimes you have to, but please don't, you guys. It's like so dangerous. All right, so let us wrap up this show about murder on the road or murder on the highway or whatever the hell I called it. I called it something like that.
Highway to Hell. It's a highway to hell. Yeah.
Maybe it's a little glib.
Yeah, right.
But I don't remember what I called it.
I want to hear that now. I want to hear that song.
This is the 21st. This is the 21st century. You can just go in the other room and turn on YouTube and you can listen to whatever you want to.
Wrap it up.
I'm going to wrap it up. You're making my shit go all out of focus. Why are you doing it? Quit.
Okay, let me get.
He said squirm around. He's squirming around. He's making it go all fuzzy. Are you almost done with it? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You're so wasted. All right. So we're going to wrap up the show. Episode 136. Hope. Stop it. Now you're just doing it to make me mad. It's special effects. God. All right. Thank you very much for doing that. It makes me look better. It's soft focus. Mm-hmm. That's like they do in like old porno films and like
go ahead and wrap it up.
Boudoir photos and stuff like that.
Talking too much.
Me talking too much.
Okay.
That's very rich coming from you. You look like you were doing like G.I. Joe poses.
Yeah.
Action fist. All right. So remember, if you like the show, like, share, subscribe on all your social media. If you'd like to financially support the show, you can go to our... Stop it, you're throwing me off. You want to do this? You can do this. You can go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/13o'clockpodcast. Or you can go to our blog, 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com. He's trying to... Oh, he's doing it again.
Okay.
And there's a little button in the sidebar to a PayPal account where you can give a one-time donation if you would like to do that. Remember to check out our last movie review, which was Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Check out our Zazzle store, zazzle.com/13o'clock. We have lots of neat t-shirts and mugs and all kind of fun, cool shit on there. Also, check out Giallo Games on thegamecrafter.com. I have
selling games, selling everything.
I have 3 different games on there. I make so much stuff. I just thought, how do I have time to do all
Make
that?
stuff, but not selling stuff. We need to sell some stuff.
Well, it's okay. I'm just making it. My job is done. Look at you making it all blurry again. Stop it. All right, and that'll do it
Because I'm belching.
oh.
Well,
That-
all this drink.
What? That makes sense. Now it went so blurry that it just stayed blurry for like a really long time.
Built so hard I can make the camera blur.
Yeah, that's what happened. Well, at least the kitty's not in here eating it today. I think she's outside on the porch playing. So she didn't get a little cameo today on the show. We're gonna have to
Wrap
make a
it
whole
up.
show. We're gonna have to make a whole show with her.
Okay.
Okay.
Wrap it up.
All right. So we're wrapping up episode 100
it.
because listen to this.
Damn.
We're wrapping up 136.
Fuck.
Get out.
136.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We will.
136
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. You sure?
I'm done.
He's
I'm
not.
holding it in.
He's not done.
I'm not going to have to leave. You can make me leave. Go ahead.
I just
Go
told
ahead.
you to. I just told
Go
you
ahead.
to get out. All right. That'll do it for episode 136. We will see you next time. Bye.